I love those glasses. Oh my God.
Thank you.
They're new.
They're very cool. They look new. They look like they're from the
I,
future.
well, when I bought them, I think I was in the future. It was like 2 a.m. and they just showed up in the mail like 7 days later, and I was like, oh, I guess I bought these.
Are they prescription?
You can get prescription if you want. These are just blue lights. I spend like 12 or 15 hours in front of a screen, and I noticed I was getting headaches a long time ago, so now I just kind of exclusively wear blue lights.
So from those glasses, I take it we are either not going to be airing this as video, or we are definitely airing this.
We're definitely airing this on video. There's one of my buddies, one of the buddies at my coffee shop. He's an older guy, and I sat down or whatever, and he looks at my glass. I never see this guy laugh, and he just laughed in my face. He goes, "Are you serious?" I was like, "Yeah, like a heart attack, man."
I like it, man. Get weird. I think it's cool.
I am all about getting weird, Joe. That's the motto. That is definitely our motto. So.
Keep Fairfield weird.
Keep Fairfield weird. You know what? In the state of the world, I just want to be weird. Just
yeah, you don't want to fit in these days. That's for sure.
Oh my God. No. Well, welcome to another episode of an IAFM podcast. We're here,
JoeGerics
with Fairfield Comedy
Circle,
correct?
Fairfield Comedy Circle, yes.
Yes, right. I'm excited. So
I'm very excited.
Everyone who has been with us for a bit, we did do an article on Joe way back when. I think we were still a newspaper when we did that. It was at the very beginning of In a Fairfield Minute. So we'll definitely
remember newsprint. Oh my gosh, yeah.
What was that?
What made you think a newspaper was the way to go?
I felt
you started that and newsprint was already dead.
It was 100% dead.
The ball's on you guys.
But something I do really, really well, which I'm paying for by the way with my own offspring, is I go against the grain, Joe. I want to do the opposite of what is trendy. So I was like, you know what? Let's print out a newspaper because it's tangible.
At the time, very important.
And it's nostalgic. And, during COVID, I think we were all seeking some nostalgia, some tangible things to hold so that we feel connected. And it worked. The only issue, I love our magazine now, but to be honest with you, it was more so like printing a newspaper, kind of to your point, is far and few between. There's only so many outfits out there that I sound like a 1920s gangster. There's only some outfits out there, but there's only there's not many companies left that print newspapers.
Yeah, well, look, I think it was cool you were doing it, and it was definitely a much needed respite during those times for sure.
Yeah, so. It was eye-catching. And then, we had these, we never really executed terrible, but Chris had these ideas of having newsies out there and handing out the whole thing. And so but it was cool, and it certainly caught people's attention.
Well, I will say that in 2024, you're going to see some really random In a Fairfield Minute things popping around Fairfield County. So don't worry.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I have some ideas in the mix, which I'm excited about.
Idea man.
But and are there going to be any hints here, any Easter eggs on this, or?
Yeah, let's just say it's going to be very old school and a little New York City-esque as well.
Okay.
Oh,
it'll be a little bit fun, yeah.
Okay, I think I know what he's talking
about. We'll talk off.
You're going to open a porn theater in the middle of Fairfield?
It's funny. My dream has always been to own a porn theater with bathrooms, because I think
red curtains,
with the red curtains, because there's nothing that screams shaming but throwing a curtain behind something that's like you're a kid and you go into a video store and you're looking in the foreign section and shit, No, we'll talk offline. I'll tell you more.
Coming, but anyway, we're here to talk about you.
So Fairfield,
you're up to.
Yeah, what have you been up to? We haven't talked to you in a long while. So how's it going in the world of comedy, and specifically from more of a tri-state perspective?
Yeah,
I've been out of the loop myself.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to catch up with you. So yeah, as you mentioned, the last time I think we were together was when we had my album release show and party, which I think was December, a year and a half ago. Was that right? Maybe. I think that's right.
I think so.
Yeah. So, also around that time, a lot going on. I released the album, and my wife and I also moved to Stamford.
Really?
So we've been here in Stamford now for the last couple of years, and I think we're firmly ensconced, and we like it. Although I say firmly ensconced, and I thought we were firmly ensconced in Trumbull, and then we switched houses there and then moved out. So we're as firmly ensconced until like my wife decides we're moving. But we have bought a
Quite the
house
relationship, by the way. In our relationship, I'm your wife because I drive her insane.
Oh yeah. So I'm very good with the flow, but but yeah, we're digging it here. But when we moved out here, I started kind of focusing on other stuff in the area, and getting to Fairfield was just like it was a little bit much. So I over the past couple of years, I've been running a very small fun show at a cigar club actually in downtown Stamford called the Connecticut Cigar Company. It's a great little cigar shop, and they have kind of a back lounge, and it's kind of a members only spot. But they also open up for kind of events here and there. And I've been really since COVID doing little shows. They're super intimate. Actually, you guys should come some night. It's
We would love to.
yeah. I mean, I always said like Fairfield was always like my favorite room to perform in because of like the energy there. And I think it's something with that room. You go in and you have like low expectations because you're like, you've got these like drop ceilings and these like white plastic folding chairs, and it's not really even in an enclosed room. And you're like, well, this is going to be weird. And then, I think it always like far surpasses the expectations with the level of talent that we have and whatnot. So that had always been my favorite room to perform in. But now that I'm doing the cigar club, I hate to say it, that's kind of like overtaking it in terms of like where I like to perform, because it's 25 people max. So it's super intimate. And there's a lot of like interactivity. Also, like you can smoke in there, which is nice. I start off every show, I'll be honest with you. I start off every show, I spark up a joint.
Yeah.
And then I just pass it around. And like, where else can you do that? Where else can you go see a comedy show and like smoke weed with the comics like during the show? Like, yeah, maybe if you're lucky, you can do it after the show. Wait, what's that?
I go, you speak the words of my people.
Yeah. So we've been doing that for a couple of years.
I love that because I grew up listening to like punk rock and hardcore music. So it was very much like DIY all the time. Like I've had like a million failed attempts of having like zines when I was a kid and stuff like that. My ADHD would kick in and I would just give up on it within like probably 20 minutes. But what I've observed, at least with working with you, and just like I love comedy as a whole and stand-up comedy also, but like stand-up comedy in these comedy clubs is definitely like a DIY. Like I think that's so awesome because there's something really fantastic about the rawness of it and having to like put things together kind of piecemeal sometimes, but then create amazing experiences, which is it's awesome.
Yeah, there's something about live entertainment, and particularly I think like that the unique experience where you're like experiencing like something that will never, ever happen again.
Sure.
And I think that's true for, most live entertainment. But I think as you get into the smaller, more intimate venues, there's more opportunity for that randomness, for that uniqueness, for those like personal connections. So the cigar club has certainly been that, and it's been a lot of fun. So yeah, I've been doing that for a few years, and I'm still performing in Connecticut, in New York. I've been doing a show. Have you guys ever been to Edmontown Hall in Newtown?
No,
I never been to Newtown.
Never been to Newtown?
Well, we have to buy wood.
God.
We have to buy wood pellets for our pellet stove soon, so we're going to be going to Newtown.
Newtown is like it's a cool town. I have to say, it's like the town has a town hall, and unlike a town hall in the towns that we're probably familiar with, instead of having like boring government offices, their town hall is kind of like an entertainment area. They have a movie theater. They do, not.
They're living out the Gilmore Girls.
It's I mean it to some degree it's like walking into the past. Like
it's pretty awesome.
Newtown has this historic feel to it, a little kind of like at Midtown Hall, I don't know, it always reminds me of like Back to the Future. Like, I don't think they have
Oh,
a
okay.
clock on the
Yeah,
top,
that
but
sounds-
they have, you know, I feel like someone should be attaching wires up on their roof.
Oh my God.
I love it.
Yeah, but so yeah, I did some shows there, and it looks like we'll be continuing to do those kind of on a monthly basis. So, you know, keeping pretty active in the area.
Oh, I'll have to check those out as well. That'd be cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you drive if you're driving to Newtown, just look for the flagpole in the middle of the street, and you're there. There's literally a flagpole just in the middle of Main Street. Just drive straight up 25. You'll drive up 25 till you hit a flagpole. You're there. It's very weird.
Oh my God. That's
So
amazing.
so you decided, okay, we're gonna bring back Fairfield Comedy.
Is the cigar thing part of Fairfield Comedy Circle? Is that like a separate thing that you like to do?
Just a separate thing. Basically, you know, when I stopped being as actively involved in Fairfield and moved to Stamford, I was like, you know what, wherever I go, I kind of like want to have a show in my area. Like I you know, for me, it's like, oh, where's like an easy place for me to go? Because when you're performing comedy, like part of the challenge is like, oh, you got to go to the show, right? You have to go to the city. You know, or I do shows at these breweries around Connecticut. I got to drive like an hour or 2 hours to, you know, get somewhere in Connecticut. I like driving 10 minutes. You know, that's kind of like the radius I want to be in. So if I can get a show that's like 10 minutes away, bingo. So I've just been kind of doing that on my own, partnering with the owner of the Connecticut Cigar Company, Nick Casanelli, who's a great guy and does other cool events there as well. I've been doing that separately. But while I've been doing that, part of the team at the Fairfield Club had opened up a comedy club here in Stamford. So they've opened up a full-time club.
Oh, wow.
They also operate a couple clubs in New York City. So they opened that up. And when they did that, they're like, we just want to focus on this. We have this big room in Stamford. You know, it takes a lot more work and has a lot more upside financially, I think, when you have like every night shows and, you know, a room that seats, you know, 250 people. Yeah. So they at that point decided they don't really want to spend their time, you know, kind of worrying about like small potatoes, Fairfield, right?
Sure.
But, you know, Beecher, who I think you both know, who, you know, is one of the partners at Fairfield and is there every week bringing the funny, you know, he still very much wanted to keep doing Fairfield. And I have always had a special place in my heart, you know, for that room. I think the Circle Hotels, it's a great place to perform. Okay. So when that happened, we discussed and we're like, well, I think we should just keep running it. You know, we know what we're doing. We can handle this. And, you know, it's not small potatoes to us, you know, and it's something we really love. So we decided basically, hey, let's rebrand, let's reopen. You know, summer is always kind of a slow time for comedy generally, but it's always been kind of a struggle in Fairfield. Outside of we've done the Penfield shows with the Parks Department in the town, which are always, you know, kind of blowouts.
Why do you think in the summertime it kind of like
people don't want to be outside, people go away, you know, there's a lot of vacations, so you just can't operate at the same volume. So you know, rather than trying to like rush a reopening and open during a slow time, we're like, you know what, let's give ourselves some time to get everything mapped out, you know, kind of build our team up a little bit here, and open up in September when everybody's around. So September 9th, the first Saturday after Labor Day, we are officially back, and we'll have shows then every Saturday night.
This is like super exciting because I love that you guys do this in Fairfield because I enjoy going to comedy shows. I know. So it's something.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's a fun room. It's, you know, and it's affordable. You know, it's an affordable night out. It's not an expensive ticket. It's BYOB, so you can go and get some live entertainment in a fun, intimate room without, you know, spending $100-$200, right? Like, you know, it seems like everything costs $100 these days. Like if you're like going out, it's like, oh, do I have $100? I have to go out. So
$8 is like the new $5.
Yeah, so it's nice to like, you know, have something where it's like, hey, you can go out and, you know, it doesn't have to necessarily like, you know, hurt as much financially. So
and it's BYOB, right?
Yeah, BYOB. So, you know, go on, you know, bring a 6-pack, you know, people bring wine. I've seen people roll in with like handles of vodka. People like, you know, people have like coolers under their seat. Like some people I don't even know if they're.
Who's going to heckle the guy with the handle bottle of Stubra?
Yeah, I think some of the people might not even be there for the comedy. I think they just want to like get drunk somewhere that's not home. You know?
So who's going to
It's
be
fine.
what comedians do you have lined up for the 9th for your first relaunch of the show?
So we have Jim Florentine, who's just a fantastic comic. We've had him at Fairfield a number of times, and
Okay.
he's great. I guess his biggest fame was on Crank Yankers. If you hear Jim's voice, he's got a
I
very
remember Crank
kind of
Yanker.
raspy voice, and it's if you hear it, you'll recognize it for sure.
I like to think of myself as the pioneer of prank calls back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, I think everybody credits you with that.
There's nothing better than calling 2 different restaurants and then combining them on Total Phone and let hilarity ensue. At least on my end, I thought it was hilarious. They were probably like, these bastards. Like, it's 6 o'clock on a Friday.
Now, if we could find a way to do that on like FaceTime, you might have a whole TikTok channel right there.
I
you
know, like that'll be our theme for the TikTok.
Oh my god, yeah! Until people start hating us. Have you watched that prank show on? I don't know what channel it is on, to be honest with you, because we have YouTube TV.
The Johnny Knoxville.
Like Johnny Knoxville.
What's his name?
What's the do? Eric Andre.
Oh yeah, I know I haven't. Did you see Eric Andre's movie on Netflix?
Yeah, that was good.
That was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Eric Andre is such a
basically like a 90-minute prank. It was amazing.
Oh.
It was just like nonstop. It was it was great. So I'm generally not like a big like prank guy. I'm not a big like roast guy, but that Eric Andre movie was great.
I love it. So who are you like? Are you super stoked about someone in particular that you have in the lineup, or someone you're going to share the stage with soon?
Yeah, I mean, so personally I'm just excited to be reopened, but September 16th we have Ashley Austin Morris headlining, and she is like, I just think amazing. Like, she's so fun to see. She's actually a pretty accomplished actress as well. She's been on a bunch of like Netflix shows, but her stand-up is just next level, and she's just so entertaining. So actually that's the night I'm like telling all my friends to come out. I'm like, hey, we're opening up the 9th, but like, come on out the 16th. Like, we're gonna go out. It'll be like the album release night. Mark that
the 12th. So we're gonna have like a
nice. Oh, really? Oh, let's make it a birthday party for you.
That'll be a birthday party for Chris.
It's so funny. Like, I know, like, birthday party. I'm like, I'm the person, ironically enough, because like obviously we do this for a living, and I work in an agency and do new business development and stuff like that. But my like on my off time, my goal is to just blend into the wall as much as possible.
Well, if you want to have a party that night, let me know. If you guys are coming, I'll put you both on the guest list. But
my god!
If you don't want to have it be your official birthday, we can celebrate anyway.
Oh, I don't care. I just think it's funny because like everything I do is so much like people facing and talking and chatting and all these things, but in my like, real life, I'm like this major like introvert that would just, if I could blend in and read a book, would be like my
well, come on, bring a book and we'll just drink around you.
Oh my god. So exciting. So September 9th, that's going to be the first show.
And then this will be a little bit out there in the distance, but I am very excited for it. We have Mike Hanley coming Saturday, December 9th.
Oh, cool.
And Mike is a Massachusetts comic, and is like, I think the hardest I laugh is seeing him perform. He's one of my favorite comics to work with. Like, I do a lot of shows, and I'll be honest with you, like, I do the show, I do my time, and I'm like, all right, like, I'm gonna hang out, I'm gonna have a drink at the bar, I'm gonna talk to somebody. When I'm working with Mike, I just want to see him work because he's fantastic. So if you're looking out there, if you're trying to make December plans, that would be one I'm very excited for.
No, I'm glad you guys are bringing it back too, just because like I would go to a comedy show every weekend if
Well, we can make that happen for you. Happy to have you every Saturday. I expect to see you there now. I'm taking that.
I think it's fantastic. It's a great way to spend time, and again, in the present state of the world, who doesn't want to laugh more, right? Like.
That's our favorite thing.
You guys are doing God's work, in my opinion.
That's if you believe in that sort of thing.
I always say he or she. It's not my place.
Oh, you believe in a gendered God.
Whoa.
Interesting.
Well, even with
I'll tell you this. I just answer to the universe and to mushrooms. What other mushrooms tell me to do?
From your mouth to God's ears.
Seriously.
To mushrooms ears.
I just saw an ad where now you can get what is it, like ketamine treatments, like
What?
locally. I saw it randomly popped up on Instagram. It's
I've
like,
heard good things about it. I've heard like it has
Yeah.
like some very positive like mental health effects.
oh,
for
there
people.
you won't have any
It's
argument when
nuts.
free with mushrooms and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I just was reading there's studies that prove that mushrooms, and I've said this on a million different podcasts, but whatever, that it heals the trauma in your brain. Like
Yeah.
it's actually proven. So like, I mean, I'd rather do anything from the earth or from the ground versus putting chemicals in my body any day.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. Weed and mushrooms are the way I like to go. So
Yeah.
Yep.
I went from Prozac to weed, and it was the best decision I ever made in my life. Like legitimate, I'm a better person, better husband, father, friend,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. Just makes me genuinely a better person.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. It makes me a sleepier person.
That too. Hey, I'll tell you what, I've never slept better in my entire life.
I know.
There's no greater.
But that's the thing. Like I've gotten to an age where like sleep is my party. I used to be like, oh, let's go out and like drink and have fun. Now I'm like, oh, let's smoke some weed and go to bed.
Right?
Like,
If I'm going out, it's got to be happy hour.
yeah, like I remember like happy hour used to be like the start of the night. I'm like, yeah, let's start with happy hour and then we'll keep
Yeah,
going. I'd be out until 2. And now I'm like happy hour and then bed. Like, I can be home by 8. That'll be fantastic.
Be home by 8, watch some Netflix.
Yeah, rehydrate a little bit for the next day.
Couldn't agree more.
That's
I love why we have you. We might as well. I mean, what's going on just in general, in your opinion, in the state of comedy? Because I know there's a lot, just from my observation and following different comedians and stuff like that. Like,
I don't know what's going on in the state of
Yeah.
comedy. Things seem pretty much the same to me. It's what I like to see is I see comics kind of creating their own opportunities and avoiding the traditional gatekeepers
Sure.
that existed. There's a lot more, I think, opportunity to self-produce albums and specials. Joe List, who's a great comic that we've had in Fairfield a couple times, just dropped a great album or special on YouTube last week, which was hilarious. And YouTube has really proven to be a vehicle where these people can like boost their channels and really get a lot of attention and make some money. And
Yeah.
because there's good gatekeepers out there, like if you can get on Netflix or HBO or something like that, that's great. But that's not there for everybody. And there's a lot of talented comics who are developing followings and have followings who are creating those opportunities. So for me, when I started comedy, it was all about being my own gatekeeper. That's when as soon as I started, I was producing shows, and I've been producing shows ever since, because I don't want to have to go to somebody and be like, hey, will you book me? Like, I don't want to have to rely on somebody else's opinion of me. I think I'm funny, so I'm just going to put up a stage and invite some friends and have a little fun.
Yeah, I love that. It's like that DIY spirit. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of, I mean, even through COVID, obviously, there's a lot of comedians whose careers launched because of it. Like, what's his name? Anthony Rodia, right? Like,
Yeah. Mhm.
started his whole
Some-
thing. And I
A
mean,
Snapchat filter changed everything. Like just crazy.
Yeah. I mean, things have changed too. There's stand up, but now there's a lot of performers who, are building followings off TikTok. There's a lot of stand ups who are trying to find ways to kind of leverage that and leverage the reels.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I'm a stand up purist. So I like to see stand ups being able to take advantage of this. Sometimes when I see people who are like, funny in TikTok, I don't necessarily like attribute it with the same level of, talent or work that a lot of stand-ups put in.
It doesn't translate sometimes either. I feel like there's some people who put out really good bits on, whether it's Instagram or YouTube or whatever the case may be, and they're incredibly funny, but from a stand-up perspective, it does not cross over.
Yeah. I mean, some of it's not stand-up. And, the other thing to kind of keep in mind is when you're out on the socials, you have a pretty broad audience that will self-select. So if you have kind of a unique viewpoint, or you have, something that a smaller portion of, the populace relates to, you can actually have a huge following on TikTok just by having something that feels like individual and unique to them. But when you bring that to a stand-up comedy stage where you're not controlling who sees it, or, you have a 100 people, there might not be enough people that kind of intersect with your viewpoints or perspective to make that work. So you can have a higher level of, I think, specificity on, some of these platforms. And in stand-up, you kind of need to find a way to be funny to, you don't have to be funny to everybody in the room, but you better be funny to at least half of them. So.
Yeah, no, of course. Because I just feel like if you're doing stand up, and like kudos to you guys, because you have to be tenacious, you have to have tough skin and have like, be able to stand up there and just have at it. Yeah. I speak in front of people that don't want to talk to me most of my day, and I couldn't imagine doing it in a small room, and it would make
the good news is most of the people who like you're doing it, they've signed up for it, they know what they're there for. And the other thing too is, I'll be honest, like if you talk to, I think, most stand-ups, I think sometimes people will be like, oh, like you do stand up, like you're so brave. And I'm like, I am not brave. Trust me. I'm addicted to it. You get on stage and you do it. And after a little bit, you kind of get over most of the nerves of it. And then it's just like, oh, I need to have a microphone in my hand. Like these people need to know what I'm thinking right now. So
how did it all start for you? Because obviously this is something you're super passionate about. It's something that, like, this is your thing. You've known it forever. Like, you just went straight into it. Like you said, confidently, like booking your own gigs and things. So how did comedy and stand-up kind of get introduced to you growing up?
So, it probably started for me when I was in college. At least comedy is like a performance type thing. Yeah. When I went to college, I started following our college had an improv troupe. I went to Georgetown, and we had an improv troupe, and I didn't like work up the guts to like try out for the improv troupe, and I probably should have. But instead I went to all their shows and really enjoyed it. Yeah. And on that improv troupe were Mike Birbiglia, Nick Kroll, John Mulaney.
Oh my God. Stop.
Yeah, these are the people that I was like in college with, seeing in this, little room in the student center that sat like 50 people. And we'd get to see these guys for $5 on a Friday night. And, I didn't have the guts to go try out, my freshman year. And who knows, I think most of the people in that troupe ended up with jobs out of college in comedy, which is not a common thing to happen. And obviously,
hey, that's cool.
Yeah. A lot of them are hugely successful, but doing that, I became friendly with Mike Birbiglia, and I used to do a lot of programming and event running at college. So I used to book shows and have him host. So we became friendly through that. And then when I graduated and was living in DC, he was starting comedy in DC and working at the DC Improv. So I'd go see him there. And then, we both ended up moving to New York. I know it's starting to sound like I stalk Mike Birbiglia, but I don't. But I just kind of like followed his career. And like, if you go see his first Comedy Central Presents, his first like half-hour special, if you go back and watch that, on the audience cuts, you'll actually see me multiple times during the show, because I just happened to be seated, like they seat you randomly. I got seated front row center. So like I remember him coming out on the stage and he looks down at me and I'm like, I'm like, I'm not stalking you. So
he's like, you better laugh.
It's like that Lionel, what is it? The Lionel Richie meme. Hello, is it me you're looking for?
Yeah, I was just like there. So, so for years I would just like, follow stand-up mostly through Mike. Got to be a fan of like, Mitch Hedberg through Mike. And just never really knew how to get started. And honestly, for a while, like I had jokes. I had like things like that I had like written that I thought were funny and didn't know how to get started. And then when I was living in New York, I went to a show at Gotham Comedy Club one night with a couple of friends of mine, because my best friend's girlfriend, now wife, her friend was performing. He was the headliner. So we went, and after the show, we're all hanging out at a bar, and she introduces me to him, and she's like, hey, Joe wants to do stand-up comedy. Like, what should he do? And this guy's like, oh, actually, like I run a show for people who have never performed before. So it's like you go and you do your first stand-up set. Okay. And the reason they did this is it's like a bringer show, right? So they get people who've never performed before, and they have to like kind of like bring their friends, and that way they have a show that, you know, kind of fills up, but also sucks because it's all people doing stand up for the first time. So I did the show. I had like probably like half the audience, like probably like 35 people there were friends of mine. Just because you know, I'm a popular guy, people like me. So they came out, and I did well. Like I didn't, you know, I wasn't great, but I did well. Like I got laughs. I put a lot of effort into it. I've been thinking about it a long time.
Yeah.
And then afterwards they're like, oh, you should do this like again. You know, not because I was funny. And they're like, oh, you're so funny. I'm like, okay. You know, I'm like, I get how this works. You just want me to do it again because I can bring people out. So I was doing these people's shows, and, you know, they were mostly bringer shows, but I was getting, you know, 10 people to 20 people out anytime I did a show.
Yeah.
But I felt bad because my friends were coming to these shows and they're paying like 20 or 25 bucks. And then I was one of the best comics on the show. Yeah. And, you know, there could be a part of you that like feels good about that. And you're like, oh, you know, but I'm like, I should not be one of the best comics on the show 3 to 6 months into doing stand-up. Like I should not. Yeah. So I started producing my own shows because then if my friends came, I could keep the cost down. So I was doing like free bar shows, but I was getting really great comics because in New York, you know, comics are looking for chances to perform. So I used to, you know, run a bar show in New York City every Friday night. That was free. And we would have, you know, Mark Norman would come perform there. Sam Morrill. We had like, you know, guys who are absolutely huge now would come, and they were hilarious then too. And
how did you connect with them? I guess, like, what is that network like for you?
Well, you know, so this is weird to admit, but I'm just really good at sucking. So I started on one of them, and then word got around, and they're like, "Hey, if you do Joe's show, he doesn't pay, but he will go." No, that's not true.
You just found the recipe for success.
Yeah, I mean, look, you start doing shows in the city, and you're on shows with different comics, and you start to realize, like, even though these people are hugely talented, they just want stage time. They want to like have more opportunities to work things out. So, you know, I'd be like, hey, if you can come, you know, I'll get you a drink ticket, and they're happy to come do it. And then, you know, I went from that to doing some shows where, you know, we would charge and, you know, be able to pay comics. And now, you know, luckily I'm at a point where, you know, it's a little different also in Connecticut than New York. You know, you can do shows, and if you're getting people in, you know, you got to pay them, and you also, there's less shows, and we're putting on quality shows, so we're able to, you know, make some money for the comics. So yeah, but it started then, and I was just like, look, my general thinking is, if I'm gonna be on a show, I want to be the worst comic on the show. You know, like if I'm having my friends come out, I should be the least funny person because they know me, they've seen me, like they're probably going to hear jokes they've heard before. So
I appreciate that though. That's like, and again, like that's a good sign of a person, right? Like
that it's not about them.
It's not about you, right? And it's hard because everything we do, especially I feel like in the world of social media, in the world of like how we communicate with people, it's kind of organically narcissistic. Like everything we're doing is ultimately promoting yourself and what have you.
Well, so you don't get and you don't get the feedback on social media in the same way that you do. And like, you know, for comedy, I don't want to say it's not about me. I'm on stage, and the reason I'm doing it is because I love getting on stage, right? But you need the audience. Like the audience, it doesn't work without the audience. Like, you know, if you're a musician, you could practice and you could get really good just by like sitting by yourself and playing. If you're a comedian, you can't improve. You can't do anything without an audience. It's a partnership. So, you know, any show that I'm doing that I'm trying to get people out to, like, I want to make sure it's a good show. And, you know, with Fairfield, you know, we've been able to do that. Now you know, I've also improved. So I don't know if I'm always going to be the worst comic on the stage. I think, you know, hopefully it's, you know, gotten tougher to, you know, find people who are always better than me, and there's, you know, more people coming up, and I want to make sure other people who are still developing are getting their opportunities to improve too, because it's, you know, it's necessary. You know, if you want to have good talent, you know, 5 years from now, you know, you might have to suffer through some, you know, rough 5-minute sets here and there. So
metaphor for life.
Was it? Yeah, I mean, it's exactly.
Have to fall to whatever. And like I remember, this was many years ago, probably 10 years ago or more, when we saw John Leguizamo, and he was literally doing like what was that big one?
His last special was like he did a whole thing
being Hispanic
on like on South American or like Hispanic history as a whole. And we saw him in Ridgefield at the Ridgefield Playhouse, and he was just working out material. It was like legit, just like very organic, very
stand.
Yeah, he had his notes, taking notes and stuff.
Yeah, and I hope he charged a lower ticket price than usual for that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and like that's exactly. And when we're doing like Fairfield, it's kind of a mix of that, right? We're going to get some comics up who are newer, who are like figuring stuff out. But by and large, we're going to have pro comics. We're getting people from New York. We're getting headliners who are excellent. You're going to see an incredible show. But, comics, they need those opportunities. Mike Birbiglia, who I do not stalk, does shows like that called Working It Out. And he did a bunch with us over the COVID summer. And he would come out with his notebook, and people knew it. The show is called Working It Out, and he's doing jokes and he's trying stuff out that's new. I mean, he's a huge talent, and it's still extremely funny to, and it's fun to see that process too. But he would do those shows, and they're not expensive, right? He's charging like, he's maybe charging $30 $35 for a ticket versus, you want to see him on Broadway, it's going to be a little bit more. So
for sure.
It's I think that's awesome. Was there any, as a kid or whatnot, was there ever like a comedian that you saw and you were like, I want to do this? Like, this has inspired me to want to be funny.
I don't think as a kid, like, I don't remember watching stand up like as a kid. To me, it feels like something that I always, I think, was trying to be funny. I always thought it was important to be funny. Right. But stand up is a, direction for that. I don't think it was something that came into my awareness probably until my college years.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Who were the comedians that you were really into in college?
I mean, it was mostly the improv troupe. I hadn't like really expanded my horizons too much. But since then,
not a bad group.
No, I mean, if you're going to be, following anybody who's figuring it out, those were guys to do it with. But, as I look back, I mean, the folks that I have enjoyed the most have been, George Carlin is, I think, just obviously.
Which you and I have discussed like randomly on Instagram messaging or whatever.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, he's just, he's God, we could really use him right now. Just like such a caliber brain and such a talented performer who put in so many years, really putting himself in a position where he could say the things that he said, right? Like
and be on point about like 99.9% of everything that he said is relatively accurate, which is pretty wild.
So he's, I mean, I always hold him up as like, one of the greatest all time, but Norm Macdonald is another one who I've always like, gravitated
what a bummer, right? I couldn't believe that he passed.
I know. Yeah. We had tickets to see him like a few months later. He was going to be at Mohegan, and we had tickets, and it was, we got refunded.
Incredible way of delivering too, like such a dry, obviously that was his whole shtick, right? Like, but being able,
but just like such a devilish energy to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like you just
like how to like just like toss a grenade into a situation and just kind of like sit
and just like watch
and you see him on, like, I've watched him on like random, it could be random reels or whatever, like on interviews and stuff, and like the level that he doesn't give is just tremendous. I mean, it's
the thing about comedy that's so weird, right? Like if you want to be really good, you have to care because it takes a lot of work. Sure. But if you really want to be really good, you also have to be on stage and not give a right? Not care and take the risks and do what you think is funny. And that's honestly like the skill that I think takes the most time to develop, is like getting to that comfort level. Fairfield, fortunately, is like one of those rooms where I feel very comfortable. Like I'm like, all right, I know this room, I know the crowd. I can kind of be myself. I can settle in, and someone in the crowd,
I find like that it is also a very fun room, because like you said, it's very intimate, and you feel like you're practically just like up, not that we're on stage with you, but like you're
right up against the stage, right? Like the front row. Yeah. I mean, the front row of seats is literally a foot and a half from the stage,
like legitimately. Yeah.
And we go 4 rows back. Like if you have the worst seats in the house, you're 4th row.
Yeah.
There's not too many places that get that close. And the other thing too is like we have theater style seating, right? It's not like a comedy club seating where you have these tables eating up space and people are spread out. People are like clustered together.
Yeah.
There's less distractions. You can focus on the comedy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very excited to get back into that room in September for sure.
Nice.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
we're excited too. I love it.
First show September 9th.
First show September 9th.
Circle Hotel. And
we'll have-
and tickets are at the FairfieldComedyCircle.com. Fairfield Comedy Circle, all one word.
Okay.
So tickets are up through December. We have our shows up. And it's going to be great comics coming in. So excited to see you guys.
Yeah, we're excited too, and we'll be there.
Yeah, well, let me know if you can do the 16th. I'll have you on the list, but just let me know when you come.
yeah.
Definitely excited to see you guys.
Very cool. It's good catching up with you as well, Joe.
Yeah, no, this has been a lot of fun. It's I'm kind of excited to re-engage with the Fairfield community. You ever want to do this again? Let me know. I'm always down.
Absolutely.
No, like
I do not work very hard. Trust me.
well, maybe as we move along the season, maybe we can touch on like some other like
That'd be fun.
in October, like around the days, just to remind people what's going on. And we're certainly going to help remind everyone through our newsletter. Obviously, on our website, we actually right now currently have a banner at the top that has like a huge lineup, so you can have a really good view of what's going on or coming up.
So we appreciate that. I hope you know how much we appreciate what you do.
We love you guys, and we appreciate what you're doing for the community as well, and not just Fairfield, but Fairfield County as a whole, because arts are important in my opinion. So
well, I don't know if I'd go that far.
The arts.
That's a pretty brave take there. We're definitely getting canceled after you said that.
Art, and it's we live in an.
Oh, you said arts are important. I thought you said farts. I'm sorry.
Oh, well,
that's my bad. I agree.
My children would agree that farts are important outside of
You know what? I would argue that farts are important. My wife disagrees, but I think they're one of the highest forms of comedy.
Yeah, definitely probably one of the more like original forms, right?
They never get old. They're always
I wasted some of my good ones earlier. Otherwise, I would, play a little song for you right now.
That would be incredible. Oh my God.
Next time for the podcast, I will.
Yes.
I'll come prepared.
I'm going to get you a syllabus the rest of the year. All right. Super, super stoked. Absolutely so happy to be able to chat again. And
me too. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in a few weeks.
Okay.
For sure. We'll be there.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good one. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.